Hello everyone, my name is Cortex and today we're going over YSG, a very old commander in the game that's still somehow relevant in 2025. Now, YSG is an archer, garrison and skill commander. He is available through the wheel and the daily special offer, and you can get him very early on in the game. His skills read as follows. His first skill is a 5-target AoE that does 1700 damage factor in a circle AoE, which means it's a full circle around him, which means you're more likely than not guaranteed to be hitting 5 targets in murder ball situations. Now, if you don't have his expertise, this only does 1400 damage factor and it's a fan-shaped area, so not as great. Now, his second skill gives you 100 rage and 100% archer attack for 3 seconds, and this procs by a basic attack and it has a 10% chance to proc with a 5-second cooldown. His third skill is a garrison skill, so not very relevant for the open field, which is just garrison 10% attack and watchtower 10% attack. Now his fourth skill is quite insane, even to today's standard, which is just a 50% more skill damage bonus, which is kind of insane. Now we also need to mention, if you are in the Season of Conquest and you do have his relic unlocked, you'll be gaining another 20% archer defense and another 12% skill damage dealt, bringing that skill damage bonus up to 62% and adding an extra 20% defense, which is very nice. Now, sort of like, I guess if you're in the early game and you're unlocking YSG and you're thinking like, how many skills do I need in him to be able to use him? Now, I would recommend you maxing YSG if you're in the early game. He is the best commander in KVK1, and also, alongside Alex, the best commander, well, shared with Alex, I would say, for KVK2. So and given that we have commander swap in the game now, YSG is a very easy max at the start of the game, in my opinion. And you can still, if you have other commanders, swap something else over and keep your YSG and keep using him, which is why he's such a good investment. Now, minimum skills to use him. I would say, like, some people like to do 5-5-1-1, but honestly, with YSG, this skill is alright. But I would just do 5 on the first skill and unlock everything and try to land into this skill. Now if you have skill resets, you can try to use that. But optimally, you'd get him to 5-5-1-5 and then you're in a good spot, but you want to get him expertise at the end of the day. Now for gear and armaments, you want to be running wedge on him and you want to be running archer equipment, obviously. Now if you're using him primary or secondary, that's okay. Now YSG, like before at least you get to Season of Conquest, is a commander that doesn't have a lot of stats. Like, he has no flat stats. This is like a proccable stat, but he has no stats other than that, apart from his 20% defense in the museum. So you can use YSG with other troop types. You can use him secondary to Alex, Sun Tzu, etc. in early KVKs. Now for late game, he's more so a pure archer commander, although in the past people have used him with Huo, I've seen him used with Ragnar, etc. So you definitely can use YSG kind of wherever you want, which makes him quite powerful, obviously with a skill damage pairing because of this. Now, you definitely want the archer boots to level 4 at least on YSG, because he's a very slow commander, he doesn't have any march speed, which also you want to pair him with a commander that has some march speed, which we'll get into later. But yeah, you definitely want the archer boots to level 4, if not to level 5, to make sure that you get that extra march speed on him. Now for talents, if you are using YSG primary, later on I would recommend using him secondary because people like to target him. If you're using him for open field, I would recommend using these talents, a lot of rage generation, skill damage bonuses, all the good stuff. And if you're using him garrison in the early game as a primary, you can run something like this. YSG is a very powerful commander in garrison in the early game and for rallies in the early game. Now if you're rallying with him, feel free to use the field build as well, if you're rallying with Tutmos for instance, because people don't really know, and still to this day AoE is very powerful in garrisons and rallies. But to this day people don't, I mean especially in the early game, people don't really understand AoE, and there's no coalitions, so you're fighting out of alliance, so you can't like have a rally from another alliance or whatever and avoid AoE. So he's going to get a lot of value for you in the early game with AoE in flags, in rallies, wherever it may be. So very powerful for that. Now, let's go over his pairings. So let's do KVK1 first. So for early KVK, I would say it's quite simple. If you're a whale and you have a lot of extra heads and you're opening a lot of gold keys, you can pair him with Tutmos. This is going to be great for rallies as well for open field. Tutmos does AoE damage factor and is very good paired with YSG. Now, if you don't have Thutmose, which most people won't have, an easy pairing to use for KVK1 is just using him with Ethelfled. Because Ethelfled does a big debuff, and as well, if you use Ethelfled primary, you can get, and also if you're using Ethelfled with him, I'd recommend a talent tree that looks like this. And the Ethelfled has Cage of Thorns, which also makes it so that you do 20% more damage to slowed units, and as a debuff, which is gonna apply before YSG does his big nuke. So yeah, very good pairing, Ethelfled YSG for low spender, mid spenders, KVK1. Now for KVK2, you have a couple extra options. You unlock commanders like Edward, Tomeris, Cyrus now, interestingly. But I don't think it changes too much. Edward I wouldn't recommend investing in. And if you're getting Edward and you're a whale, you probably get Tomeris as well, and you end up using Edward with Tomeris. Now for KVK2, if you do have the extra heads and you're maxing a lot of commanders, you can use him with Cyrus. Cyrus is a decent commander, very bad in the late game, so don't max Cyrus thinking you can use him in Seasonal Conquest, because in Seasonal Conquest he's very weak now. But if you're a whale in the early game and you do end up getting Cyrus for KVK2, you can use Cyrus with YSG, but you should probably just stick to pairing him with with Thutmose or with Mehmed or with Alex. Secondary to Alex also works, Alex YSG, KVK2, something like that. Saladin YSG also works, so yeah. You can do something along those lines. Now for the end game, it's also quite straightforward. Like I mentioned, you want something with March speed. So people are like, coming into Seasonal Conquest, I have YSG maxed. Do I max Zhuge Liang and pair it with YSG? Because Zhuge Liang is considered the strongest archer commander in the game, right? You can kind of look at YSG as the OG Zhuge Liang. Zhuge Liang is another circle AoE commander that's obviously just a way more powerful version of YSG. But the issue is they both have 0% march speed. So this march is not very good in the Seasonal Conquest because it's super slow and you're just going to get killed. So if you have YSG going into Seasonal Conquest and you're looking for an archer pair for him, I would say the easy, straightforward pairing for him, if you're just going for one archer march, is Herman. Use Herman with YSG, it's great, I've used it a ton. Herman has some march speed, which really YSG needs. And yeah, use Herman YSG, you'll be happy with that. Do not use Zhuge Liang with YSG. Another option if you have multiple archer pairings is Shajar. If you're an older player and have Nebu maxed, you can use Nebu YSG still, it's not great anymore, but usable. Boudica YSG, again, not great, usable, not great. But yeah, your best pairings for YSG in the late game are going to be, and also Ashurbanipal if you have him. But the best pairings for YSG in the late game are going to be Ash and Herman, followed by Shajar, Nebu, and Boudica sort of in the same tier, I would say. Probably Nebu and Shajar a tier above Boudica. But yeah, your best pairings late game for YSG are going to be Herman and Ash. Now, for Canyon, can you use YSG? In the early game, 100% he's gonna be fantastic for you in Canyon. In the late game, not really. Maybe in Lost Canyon with 6 marches you can make it work, but he's not really that strong in Sunset Canyon or Lost Canyon anymore. So yeah, you can use him, but it's not really that powerful anymore. Now, if we want to compare him to other archer commanders, sort of where's his power level at? I would put him on quite a similar power level to Ashurbanipal. Ash does not do that much damage factor in AoE, he does 1500 plus 1000 extra to one target. So YSG does about the same damage as Ash. And Ash has better stats, Ash has some better skills obviously, but he also has a rally skill that doesn't work, and YSG has this skill which just is super powerful and also has a rage engine. So I would put him about on par with Ash. You could say that Ash is better, you could say that YSG is better, but about the same level of power. Now above that I would put Zhuge Liang and Herman. But the interesting part, even though Shajar is the newest open field archer commander in the game, I would say she's probably weaker than YSG and Ash for that matter right now in the open field, because she just doesn't really do anything. She has no instant proc, she has no AoE damage. You have to use her primary and she's all single target. You can't use the true damage because it's terrible. It doesn't do any damage. So yeah, YSG is still in the late game a very strong commander. So now, is he worth investing in? I would say if you're in the early game, 100%. 100%. You're gonna get a lot of value out of YSG, going all the way to Seasonal Conquest, and even in Seasonal Conquest you can continue using him if you're running at least 2 archer marches. you can keep using YSG. Now, I hope that clarified if YSG is still good in 2025. I would say definitely yes, and if we're talking about the greatest commanders in Rise of Kingdoms, I would say he's definitely probably number one, given his longevity and sort of that he's still relevant to this day. There's no other commander that have kept relevancy for this long. The closest would maybe be like Alexander the Great, but YSG is way older than Alex. So yeah, YSG, I would say definitely the GOAT of Rise of Kingdoms. Now, if you want more sort of guides on early game commanders or even like KVK1 commander pairings, KVK2 commander pairings, and so on, please let me know in the comments down below. We're also closing in on 10,000 subscribers. I really appreciate all of you guys. If you're enjoying the videos and live streams, please throw a like on here. Consider subscribing to the channel to help us towards 10,000. And I'll see you all in the next video. I hope you got some value out of this. Take care, everyone, and peace out. Bye-bye.